So you're committed to resolving your menstruation symptoms, like goodbye PMS, we're ready to move forward. Or perhaps you clicked on this video because you've recently been diagnosed with a hormonal imbalance like PCOS. And with that diagnosis, you're not quite sure where to begin. Or maybe you clicked on today's video because you're ready to give up hormonal birth control and switch over to natural family planning. Regardless of where you are most definitely in the right place. And I'm so excited to share more with you in today's video. Hi there, if you're new here, welcome. My name is Jessica and I'm a holistic nutritionist and a nutritional therapy practitioner. Unfortunately, as women, we've been taught that extreme mood swings or cravings, debilitating cramps and bloating are just a typical part of womanhood and having female hormones. But I want to let you in on a little secret. None of these scenarios are typical. What's happening here is these are actually sneaky signals from our body letting us know that we may potentially have a hormone imbalance. The good news is it is your actual birthright to be able to go through drama-free without the hormone shifts up and down that give you debilitating cramps or bloating or intense cravings or skin issues. It is also extremely achievable to have stabilized moods and energy and to live a vibrant life regardless of where you fall during your hormonal cycles and shifts. So I'm excited because in today's video, I'm going to talk you through all of my favorite ways to go about achieving this. In my private nutrition practice, I talk with women every single day, whether it's my one-on-one clients or the ladies in my group course, Moms Need to Be Healthy Too, or those of you in the Living Well membership site. And I always say that we so frequently hear the term, oh, she's just hormonal, or she's being hormonal, or that must be the hormones talking, when in actuality, there's literally no science to back up that statement that's often been thrown around. I'm excited to talk with you today and let you know that your hormones can genuinely be your superpower. We can utilize these 4 different phases of our cycle to feel our best. And when we work with our body, rather than against our body, suddenly things start to click. And once we understand what's happening, I always say we take a peek under the hood and we have a strong foundation and understanding of what's happening inside, that's when the magic starts to happen and we can use these hormones as our superpowers. I think it's important to first understand the 4 different phases of our cycle. We typically just think of menstruation and ovulation because we know during menstruation, that's when we bleed, and during ovulation is when we can get pregnant and conception can happen. But there is actually 4 phases of our cycle, and during these phases, I like to approach nutrition in a little bit of a different capacity. I like to give my body what it's craving most because when we work with our body, as I mentioned earlier, we provide the nutrients and foods that we're needing. It really grounds the experience and it allows our hormones to be nourished and therefore flourish. So of course, menstruation, we all know the phase of menstruation. And during this phase, I like to consume foods that are rich in iron and that are anti-inflammatory. What this does is those anti-inflammatory properties really help ease any of that potential discomfort that you may get from cramping, lower back pain, or bloating. When we follow more closely to an anti-inflammatory diet during menstruation, it's also much easier for our body because we won't be as swollen. It will be also significantly easier for our bodies to actually shed and release. So during menstruation, I know that we often find that we can be a little bit sluggish or groggy, but I'm excited to let you know that when you do follow a more anti-inflammatory diet during this time, I have so many women that were experiencing debilitating pain on days 2 and 3 of their cycle, whereas now they can barely tell that they're even menstruating. This is achievable and this is possible. And not to worry, because later in today's video, I'm actually going to share how long it could possibly take to actually achieve results like this. Then during our follicular phase, I love to, at this point, well, at any point during my cycle, but especially during the follicular phase, I like to consume greens with at least 2 meals per day and other foods that are rich in fiber like legumes and beans and lentils. So what this does is these fiber-rich foods really nourish our body during follicular phase. And I think it's important to be conscientious of the type of foods that we're eating. Yes, during menstruation, we do want a little bit more carbs. So those sweet potatoes, that beautiful fruit, and we're doing it in an anti-inflammatory capacity. But then when we move to our follicular phase, I also really like to turn up the dial on vitamin C, antioxidant-rich foods, and fiber. Fiber, to me, is one of the most important nutrients that you can consume regardless of what season you're in during your cycle. But I think it's really important to consume things like asparagus and broccoli, Brussels sprouts, of course, ground flax seeds. If you're a subscriber of my channel, then you will know that I consider two of the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet to be ground flax seeds and broccoli sprouts, and your follicular phase is a perfect time to consume these. And then we move into ovulation. During ovulation, this is when it's important to have those rich antioxidant foods that are bright in color. They also are very representative and reflective of what's happening internally in our body. We know during ovulation, this is the time that we have the most energy. We can feel the most creative and outgoing, that bright sparkle that we feel throughout our entire body if we are hormonally sound. So I think it's important to know that that is representative of the foods that we should be eating. During this time, I'm always craving fresh juice. I'm craving a ton of smoothies and bright, colorful foods. So just knowing that these antioxidant-rich foods are so important all month long, but especially during ovulation. Now that we understand the different cycles, I think it's important to know why we could be in a potentially disrupted phase. Typically, a normal cycle is anywhere from 25 to 32 to 33 days. Anywhere in and around that range is considered normal. The one thing in caveat I will say is normal means that is a regular pattern for you. So if in the month of July, your cycle is 26 days, but then in August, you're at 31 days, that is not considered normal. What would be normal would be 31 days month after month after month, or 25-day cycle month after month after month. So I do think that that's important, that yes, anywhere in and around that range is considered normal, but I do want it to be a repetitive pattern. Therefore, we can track your cycle and your hormones on a consistent basis. So what might be the causes of an irregular cycle? Well, there are a few different factors. Of course, birth control is a big one. And there are many of us that were put on birth control at a very young age to help our cycle, or so we may have thought at the time, to give us a consistent cycle when we were younger. Unfortunately, that is a band-aid approach. We need to get to the root cause to see what is disrupting the cycle versus introducing chemically induced estrogen to give us that regular cycle. So birth control can be a huge component to regular cycles. Also, PCOS is one that we are definitely seeing more and more frequently, as well as cyst and uterine fibroids. A few other things that you may not have thought of are inflammatory diets. So diets that are high in processed foods and sugars can be cause for disrupted cycles, as well as endocrine disruptors, anything from hair care, skin care, home care products, and then of course people who do suffer from disordered eating. Any and or all of these factors can come into play when we're talking about having an irregular cycle. It's so critically important to not only measure your cycle, but to do it on a daily basis. Anytime I talk about hormones and how we can pay close attention to what's happening to our body and our cycle, I always mention measuring your basal body temperature. I do wear the Oura Ring. I've been wearing this for nearly 2 years, but prior to that, I had been checking my morning basal body temperature for 9 years. I was using the Lady Comp because that's what was available to me 9 years ago when I started doing natural family planning, and I was using the basal body temperature. Measuring your morning basal body temperature can be done with very inexpensive methods. I will link some of my favorite thermometers for you down below. I use the Natural Cycles app because it is linked with my Oura Ring. So I think it's really important to be mindful of our body temperature, which also can be a huge indicator for many other things that are happening in the body. Consistent low and or high temperature is a great indicator for thyroid dysfunction, and or any other endocrine dysfunction that may be happening. So I think it's important that we measure our basal body temperature. We look for those patterns. We watch for the pattern of ovulation, that it is happening consistently on a monthly basis. And then of course, menstruation, that we are having regular bleeding cycles. Okay, so now let's get into the good stuff. Probably the reason that you clicked on today's video. How long does it take? So this is obviously generally speaking, but I'm using my private nutrition practice. After working with thousands of women over a 10-year period, I'm going to give you my professional thoughts and feedback and realistic timeline on how long it could potentially take to balance your hormones. So using a food-first holistic approach can lead to overall balancing your hormones in less than 4 months. And I know that can seem nearly unachievable, and I want to ensure you that your body is so powerful. It wants to heal. It wants to feel its best. And sometimes it just takes us getting out of our own way and allowing our body to do what it does absolutely best. And as a woman, you are meant to have, as I said in the beginning of the video, it is your birthright to have beautiful, synchronized hormones. And all of this can be done. I have seen it done hundreds and hundreds of times in under 4 months. So let's talk through this a little bit. Let's roll up our sleeves and get into it. So first, switching to an organic diet, and we'll get into the actual tactics of this here in a second. But switching to an organic diet can reduce chemical exposure that can lead to endocrine disruption in 1 week. So in 1 week, we can really push out and move out those chemicals that we were consuming in our foods, those pesticide-rich foods like strawberries and pears and apples. So I'm well aware that one, it's not always accessible. We can't always get 100% organic at every grocery store, and that it is a bit more expensive. But I will put here on the screen the dirty dozen, and I will also have this for you in the description box down below. But if we could stick to avoiding any pesticide-rich foods for 1 week, we can really move the needle. Then simultaneously, I want us to reduce our sugar intake by 80%. I did not say 100%, by 80%. So if you are somebody who is experiencing blood sugar dysregulation and or PCOS, or you're insulin sensitive or resistant or pre-diabetic, I could keep going, but my practice is currently filled with women in this position, and it has been for the last 5 years. The trend is only getting higher for these hormonal diseases and or dysfunction. So if you are somebody who's experiencing PCOS or insulin sensitivity, then if you can reduce your sugar intake by 80% in 10 days, as little as 10 days, we can bring your blood sugar levels down substantially. I have seen this done dozens and dozens and dozens of times. I have women who come into my practice who are pre-diabetic. We put them on a fiber-rich meal plan, and within a matter of weeks and months, suddenly they are no longer considered pre-diabetic. They have no more insulin sensitivity. So I promise you that if we can reduce that processed food intake and sugar intake by 70 to 80%, we can really make a huge impact and move the needle. So I will link for you up here in the cards, and I will also include for you in the description box down below some of my videos where I share fiber-rich and hormone-nourishing meals to give you a little bit of inspiration. And then of course, if you are looking to jump in head first, then I would highly encourage you to join the Living Well meal plan, because for less than $1 a day, you can join the Living Well meal plan and you can get a weekly meal plan each and every week. They are all fiber-rich and hormone supportive. The next two big powerhouses to kind of swing the pendulum in the other direction would be fermented foods and a probiotic. What this does is this can aid in estrogen detoxification. The reasons I love fermented foods and a probiotic is because they help the body to recolonize the good bacteria in your gut. And thus you're able to have more frequent bowel movements, and through each bowel movement, we are able to rid the body of excess estrogen. We absolutely want to have estrogen in our body, but we don't want phytoestrogens. Again, that can come from the chemicals in our foods, the chemicals in our beauty products, the plastic containers that we're using. We really want to move these phytoestrogens out of our body, and this can be done in as little as 2 months. So again, having all that fiber-rich food that we talked about, and then layering on top of that probiotic-rich foods, fermented foods, and an actual probiotic. I will link my code for you in the description box down below for the seed probiotic. It has been one of my favorite for 2 years. This probiotic works beautifully with our hormones and within the endocrine system. So now we've done fermented foods and probiotic-rich foods. So this can shift in 2 months. Going back a little bit, we've reduced our processed food and sugar intake, which can make a huge difference in 10 days. And the first step is that we switch to organic foods, especially the Dirty Dozen, and that made a significant shift in 7 days. So 7 days, 10 days, and 2 months. I hope you're feeling motivated, because as you can see, just these little steps, I always say it's like climbing the rungs of a ladder. We take one step, then another, then another. Suddenly we look back and we cannot believe how far we've come. And so last but certainly not least, sticking with a hormone supportive diet can have an impact on aging and fertility. Because this is such a big one in my current private practice, I'm working with a lot of clients who are dealing with infertility. So if we can stick with a hormone supportive diet, this can have a major impact on our overall fertility in 4 months. I've had clients who've had unsuccessful IVF. I've had clients who've been on a fertility journey for years and years, and we have been able to get them in a position where they have not only conceived, but they have been able to hold a beautiful and perfectly healthy pregnancy for 9 months long after many, many failed IVF attempts. And I've done this not only in my private practice, but in my group course, Moms Need to Be Healthy too. And we've done this in as little as 4 months. So I want you to know that there is most definitely hope, and that there is light at the end of this very daunting tunnel. And I know it can seem like a huge undertaking, but I hope that that 4-step method, 7 days of removing chemically engineered foods, 10 days of removing highly processed, highly sugary foods, then we're adding in probiotic and fermented foods, and then for 4 months we're consuming a hormone supportive diet. And that is truly where the magic happens. Consistency and a commitment to making change can be hard, but I hope that by taking a step back, you can see this is 100% achievable. And by having this nutrient-dense diet and removing these endocrine disruptors from your day-to-day routine are small steps that lead to huge gains. And last but certainly not least, including stress-reducing tactics and tools like gratitude journaling, movement, getting outside, and incorporating a little bit of mindfulness is so helpful. So what I've done is I put a video for you right here on the screen to watch next to help you incorporate a more mindful and stress-reducing routine to get us closer to our hormone goals. And if you like today's video, you can let me know by giving it a big thumbs up. And now the subscribe button is right over here. Give that a click. That way you don't miss a single video. And I hope to see you back here next Thursday.